All right, so we're jumping in today and, of course, diving into more executive interviews around the gaming system. And you guys have been following a lot of our content, really diving deep in what's happening in blockchain gaming. So we wanted to continue to explore all of that good stuff. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Today, joining us is Mr. Jason Brink, who is otherwise known as Bitbender, but also the president of blockchain over at Gala Games. Great to have you, Jason.
Thank you very much, Paul. Happy to be here
Excellent.
today.
Yeah. So we have a ton of questions for you. Gaming has been exploding. And by the way, congrats on, I guess you can get congrats with Gala flying up the charts right now in terms of performance, while we have a lot of cryptocurrencies struggling a bit. But let's get into, first of all, your background. Kind of tell me how you got into the space, and more importantly, what your role is there at Gala.
Sure. So, a little bit about who I am and how I got into the space. Originally, I was looking at blockchain from the perspective of how can we use this to create some fundamental positive changes in the world. And originally, I was looking at this kind of more from a social perspective, specifically when it comes to foreign aid. I had spent some time in Haiti doing disaster relief work following the earthquake and seeing how terribly inefficient the entire aid process was, with millions and millions of dollars coming into the country, but almost none of it getting to the people. This obviously was not ideal. So I wanted to find a new way to make this better, and I saw blockchain as a chance to do that. Wrote some proposals, put together a paper, ended up getting an award from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Global Development Network for something called the aid dollar. But ultimately, in the long run, what ended up happening is I became aware that governments and NGOs just would never move quickly enough to really make a difference. And that's why I got into gaming, because in gaming, you can move extremely quickly and have a real impact via play to earn economies and things like that.
Yeah, Jason, we've talked about play to earn. Obviously, anybody watching our show understands the environment that has been somewhat created, by Axie, in the sense of getting, up and front and center. But also, Gala is in the process of creating an entire stable of this type of product. And
Correct.
when you look at play to earn, and you look at the global economies around the world, what we're seeing in Asia, what we've seen in MENA, and also in the GCC countries. But in general, we're seeing a lot more movement outside the United States. In fact, even though I think we'll see a lot more adoption here in the US coming very quickly, as being one of the gaming centers of the world. What are your thoughts on how this has become a global really phenomenon in terms of play to earn, and how this might be in terms of the future?
Well, I think that sort of the first beginning part of this, and this may sound a little bit strange, but the concept of work is changing at a very fundamental level.
Right.
We went into this pandemic, and two years ago we go into this pandemic, and now after 18 months, 2 years of everybody sitting at home, working from home, wearing button-down shirts and pajama pants, people are realizing that maybe work isn't exactly what we've always thought it needed to be. And so this is where you begin to have the sort of creativity that blossoms into the option for play-to-earn ecosystems. And in other parts of the developing world, where the pandemic has hit even harder than it has in some of the developed world, people are losing their jobs, people are starving, people absolutely need something to get themselves by. This is where play to earn has started to have a tremendous impact. And, as you mentioned, Axie and the Philippines, and, tremendous player growth in that area. What I think we're going to be seeing here in the future is, as we develop some of these bigger titles with a little bit more stable economies behind them, you're going to see a tremendous flood of players around the world jumping into the space. I think it's going to be a wonderful, creative time.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen esports kind of blow up here in the US and mostly in Western Europe. Do you see play to earn? Because this is a lot more utilitarian, in the sense that, hey, this is actually feeding someone's family in some parts of the world. It's a lot different than being on stage in Vegas when you're over there doing a Fortnite challenge or something of that nature.
Right.
So a completely different ecosystem, and also a completely different baseline in terms of the amount of players that are going to be active in the space. What do you think the capacity is in terms of growth? Where do you think we'll be,
Oh
say,
my
in
God.
5 years? I mean, it's going to be huge,
Well,
right?
the way that I look at this is you have 2.5 billion gamers worldwide. Okay. And every single one of these gamers has essentially, for the last few decades, been fed this lie that they own their games.
Bingo.
And they don't. They don't own their
Yeah.
games. They don't own their in game assets. They don't own their progress. Nothing. It's all just fake. It's on a server somewhere. And so, what we're working on doing with all of this is to create the opportunity for everybody to get involved, to fundamentally own your in game assets, to be able to have that sense of almost a tangibility to it that gaming used to have when you had cartridges and things like that. So I think that the upside on this is absolutely unlimited. There's a tremendous area for growth. But I think critically, and this is where I will actually push back a little tiny bit on what you said. What makes esports so fun is that the games are fun.
Hmm.
Play to earn gaming has not, up until this point in time, been particularly fun. It's kind of like a job.
Yeah.
What I see here is that play to earn gaming and esports will begin to merge in a very interesting combination here as play to earn games become more engaging. And, I mean, one of the things that we're doing just this coming weekend, actually, is we have the Gala Games World Esports Spider Cup tournament in Seoul,
Hmm.
South Korea.
Okay.
And it's an amazingly fun game. It's play to earn, and it's also built for esports. So I think that you're going to see a lot of overlap between these areas in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, I would agree. And my point was not necessarily that esports was kind of a division of the gaming center. What my thinking is that esports is just so big, and
Yeah.
it's its own industry. It's now a global phenomenon. It's probably outpacing in terms of viewership, many sports in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
I'd say mid-tier, even to tier one sports. So it's definitely become something of a big nature. My question is how long before we see that transcendence from what we're seeing in blockchain gaming today,
Hmm.
which is still somewhat very early stage,
Very
and
early.
a lot of people argue that. But where do you think that conversion is going to take place? How quickly do you think we'll see the ramp occur?
I think that it's going to be quite quick. I think that the main differentiating factor right now, and this is
Yeah,
something that we've focused on very, very heavily, is the fact that for a long time, play to earn and blockchain games just haven't been very fun because they're
yeah,
not being made by game developers.
right, right.
Um, One of the things that sets us apart is, as you know, our CEO, Eric Schiermeyer, is one of the co founders of Zynga. Our president of games, John Oswald, is the former head of mobile product at EA. We have this amazing stable of people who make actual, real AAA games. And having those AAA games and those titles that are actually fun and engaging that's a prerequisite to have that explosion of growth and that verging into mainstream. The other component of that is finding ways to reduce the barriers of entry because blockchain gaming or blockchain as a topic in general is kind of scary for a lot of people. Even getting somebody to have a Coinbase account, which is like the lowest lift in the world, is still something that you have to talk people into sometimes. And the
Right.
idea of, creating a wallet and having a mnemonic, it's just a nightmare. And so I think that once we have that once we get rid of that, then or not get rid of it necessarily, but kind of push it into the background, I think you're going to see a tremendous explosion of growth.
Yeah, I was just looking at a few of these. You're right.
There you
I
go.
think just in terms of the number of projects that you guys are working on, but in general, like you had mentioned, I think we're going to see this explosion of adoption, which remember, for everybody that's watching this show today, you guys are super early. You're at
Yeah,
the very
absolutely.
literally bleeding edge of what the industry is going to be doing. So I think from an investment standpoint, if you're investing in this industry, you're going to be in a really good spot in a few years. I think it's going to be absolutely, and right now, many of you are probably investing in projects like Gala and just killing it. But the thing that I really, I think, follows so quickly is this transformation of our society
Yeah.
into kind of the tokenization of society in general, because we're going to see, of course,
Yeah,
Web 3.0 develop. What are your thoughts about this? Because I think you mentioned something in an article I read that was talking about this convergence of NFT, art, games, all coming into kind of this one confluence space,
right.
and it
The
it being kind
metaverse.
of this new place. Talk to me
Right.
about how that's going to happen between esports and what we see in blockchain today.
Well, I think that you know the concept of the metaverse, and I part of me really absolutely despises that term because it's so overused, but it is part of the zeitgeist, so I guess I'll go ahead and stick with it. But the concept of the metaverse, where you have this evolving sort of central location, this hub of all of these different concepts coming together. I think that as people begin to develop digital identities, okay, real digital identities, not
Hmm.
like, Facebook identities where it's like,
Yep.
okay, this is a digital extension of my physical world self, but like real digital identities where you are, in fact, a cartoon cat rather than, yourself. And that's the way that you present yourself to the world. And this is where the power of PFPs and all of that come in. I think that once we have that beginning to expand into persistent spaces, combined with gaming, both also persistent and event based and things like that, I think that you're going to see this sort of constellation of metaverses where you have different walled gardens that all sort of bleed into the same gigantic, all-inclusive courtyard. I think it's really honestly the next evolution of the internet, because we live, and part of this is thanks to, again, the pandemic and other current events and things like that. We live now more digitally than we ever have before,
Yeah.
and I think that that's profoundly powerful and interesting, and I think that it is going to be society changing in the long run.
Yeah. One thing that we look at, Jason, is kind of this evolution of the industry, the blockchain side of things, the business side of it. When you look
Right.
at whether you're investing a token or you're getting behind a project at the early stage, whatever it might be that you guys are watching the show today. One thing that I've noticed, because I pretty much grew up in my career working with technology companies and building in the VC world along with the
Right.
traditional startups. What I found here with our research and just our exposure into the space is that blockchain is kind of recreated that entire relationship between how
Yep.
funding is moving in the space. You guys have been able to do this somewhat without that kind of
Correct.
path. Explain how and whether or not you think that's sustainable going forward for companies like Gala, because Gala most likely will be one of the top tier companies that rise out of this.
I
Um,
certainly hope so.
how do you see that? Because I would feel like you almost need, I don't want to call them sugar daddies, but you almost need those $500 million injections every once in a while, to kind of get
Right.
things going. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that we are proud of is that we've done everything that we've done completely without any sort of VC, backing or anything like that,
Right.
which is very rare in this industry. As far as
It
I
is.
know, we're the only project of our scale. We currently have 170 employees. We're growing like crazy. We've got, 10, 15 different games in the pipeline to be released, most of which nobody has any idea are coming yet. And they're going to change things. We've done this entirely without any sort of VC backing. So we're very proud of that fact. What made this possible for us is that we kind of did things backwards. A lot of the blockchain space has focused on, okay, idea and then white paper and then
Hmm.
funding and then implementation. We switched that entire thing up and we threw the white paper concept out completely. We don't have a white paper. We'll never have a white paper, because it's just basically people look at it as investment prospectus, which is not what you want, especially if you're trying to build utility. So we started by having a live service. We started with
Right.
a game, Townstar. We got that stood up and working and playable long before there was any token involvement at all. And
Right.
then once we had that stood up and we had a token, then we started selling NFTs that people could use immediately in game.
Right, right.
And that, and then as well as our ecosystem products like the node licenses and things like that, that has enabled us to do this without being beholden to VCs.
Yep.
And for us, that's really important because it allows us to make decisions in the benefit of the gamers and in the benefit of the games, rather than sort of having to do things because it's necessary to meet your quarterly projections for VCs.
Yeah, for sure. No, I like that role. And I continue to see, the early stage guys that have understood kind of this shift, because there's several investors. I think most of the real cutting edge investors have kind of broken out of the traditional mindset of a VC, and they
Oh, for
understand they
sure.
have to, yeah, they understand they have to deal with this space differently
Yeah,
than any other space they've dealt with before, in a different
correct.
way. So I think that is a good step in the right direction. I want to jump over to growth of Gala and kind of where you guys
Sure.
are rolling out. You guys have now, I think you updated this player run nodes number, which was
Yes, that's
impressive.
at
Talk to me about how this works.
21,000 yesterday. So essentially, the Gala Games founders nodes are what power the entire ecosystem. So everything that happens on the Gala network runs through this series of nodes.
Mhm.
These are licenses that you can purchase from our website. We've got I think about 15,000 of them left out of the total 50,000 total number. So they're going fast. And yeah, they support and operate the entire ecosystem. And as we move forward with GalaChain and releasing our own mainnet and things like that,
Yeah.
these nodes will serve to support that entire ecosystem as well.
How do you see that? Because that's something for scalability. A lot of people don't
Right,
realize that when you look at how you're scaling a project, especially, any kind of decentralized projects or in general, you've got a node
right,
set up here versus saying going to, a typical AWS or some model where centralized servers are occurring. If you look at
right.
scalability, especially at the pace you guys are doing in terms of game development, how many nodes do you think you need out there to be able to handle the kind of growth? Because we're still very small right now in terms of player activity and all that good stuff.
And we're bigger than you think. But yeah, in
Well, I mean,
the
as an
the grand
industry,
scheme of
industry.
things, yeah, as an
Yeah.
industry for sure. I mean, Zynga at its peak, I think had about 100 million DAU.
Okay.
Um, so that's kind of the way we are scaling and looking at all of this, saying, okay, well, we need to be able to handle, Farmville 2 level of activity across our
Okay.
entire
All right.
network. And if we can't do that, then, what's the point? And this is actually one of the reasons that we are doing what we're doing in the development of GalaChain, because there is no other chain out there that will handle what we need in terms of, you know, player pressure. But for us, we believe that those 50,000 nodes will support the chain itself and the gaming network. However, individual games will also have their own types of nodes to perform specific services
Gotcha.
for those games, whatever those happen to be. Just yesterday, in fact, Townstar nodes went on sale and sold out completely in I think 4 minutes, which was fantastic. But I think there was actually a little bit of a hiccup with the sale, so it didn't quite start off exactly how we wanted. But be that as it may, what those do is they allowed you to have a persistent state for your game, so you can run your game without having to have your browser up and running. Now,
Right.
that's very important for people who are wanting to, do late stage crafting and things like that, which, might take forever, 12 hours. You don't want to have your browser window up for all that time,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
each game
Well,
has its own specific things that may
yeah.
need
So
help there.
it doesn't sound like scalability is going to be an issue then.
No, not at all.
You guys are in our perfect position here with being able to grow this level. You mentioned mini games that are in the pipeline. I want to review, just for maybe some of our audience don't understand just how vast the game stable is at Gala. Looking at this first game, Spider Tanks. This, of course, is Gamedia, Mac and PC. This is a PvP brawler. So I like
Super
this.
fun.
This is an interesting, and this is one of those more mature, I think, games that you guys have in place
Yeah.
today. As far as the game ecosystem right now within Gala, what is the biggest player ecosystem that you have currently in terms of the games?
In terms of live services right now, Townstar is the only one that's completely live. Right
Okay.
now, Spider Tanks is still in beta. It's not completely rolled out yet. That's going to be Q4 of this year, to be honest, probably Q1 of next year before it, absolutely gets completely pushed out. So Townstar is currently the largest current player base. We
Gotcha.
have tens of thousands of players right now earning on a daily basis in Townstar, which is something that's super exciting. I love seeing, people being able to, post like, I was just able to buy this thing for my mom because of,
Hmm.
Townstar. Some
Yeah.
guy sent us a video the other day of new appliances, new home appliances. He's a guy in the Philippines. The first time in his life he's been able to buy home appliances that are new, and he was able to do that because he was playing Townstar, which makes me super happy.
Let's get into some of these other games. Mirandus, talk to me about when and how this will roll out.
Mirandus is the magnum opus, I guess. It is an MMORPG. It's set in a medieval world. Player ownership is a central part of this. It is absolutely epic. We're having a full not a full, I don't want to say full. That's not the right word. We're having an alpha that people are going to be jumping into and playing here before too
Hmm.
terribly long. That I think people are really going to love. But it's a very very cool world. It's neat. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think people are going to have great fun with it.
Timing on this one?
Timing on that one, I'm thinking that we'll probably have a decent playable build. I'm hoping with a lot of game depth by the end of next year. It's definitely a long term project. It's an MMORPG. I mean, these things
Right.
take years and years and
Yeah.
years in development. And we're moving way faster than we would in the typical gaming space, and we're keeping the community involved, which is actually a really cool thing that you can do here that you can't do in traditional gaming.
Echoes of Empire, a strategy game. This one is
Yes.
another one that, I mean, the graphics you guys have developed, this is absolutely fantastic. It seems like your
Now this is
animation team is unbelievable. So,
Well, we do. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, this is what happens when you have AAA talent that you're able to apply to things. This
yeah.
is all. This is a space 4X, and I think that people are really going to enjoy this. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's kind of like civilization esque thing,
Gotcha.
but they've done an absolutely amazing job with these.
I like it. Last up there, of course, is Fortified, and that one is another one. This one is a tower defense game, which is,
Right.
according to my game expert, this is like one of the only ones that he's discovered out there in terms of tower defense.
Well, we have. And maybe I can send you this, and you can actually throw it in here, but we actually have some new footage released for that
Oh, okay.
that looks absolutely gorgeous. I
I
think
like
people are
it.
going to absolutely love it.
I like it. Jason, so a good lineup here, definitely in terms of just the maturity of how Gala has gone to market, what you guys are doing in terms of an overall strategy. Being a global company, I'm kind of curious, how are you guys addressing the developer challenge that a lot of blockchain companies are starting to see kind of in the trenches? What are you guys doing to address that from a developer standpoint, a game designer aspect, all that?
You mean in terms of
People.
staffing?
Yeah, people.
Yeah, we have grown. So I joined officially, I want to say like March of last year, something like that. I believe I was employee number 8 at
Wow.
the time. I've known Eric for some time, so he had been asking me to join, and then I
Yeah.
would have been like one of the co-founders, but I missed out on that by literally a few hours. But anyway, um, I was like employee number 8 when I joined, and prior to joining, I had been working in the blockchain space for some time, and I had seen so many projects without developers. You have this great idea, you have this great white paper, and it gets pushed out there, and then you're like, great, this is fantastic, this sounds cool. Who's building it? And then you discover that it's being built by like some random dude in his garage. And he's the only person working on it, and
Yeah.
nothing else is making any movement. So that is what I had become used to. And when I first started working with Gala, I'm like, okay, well, I'd be interested in joining, but I need to talk to the devs first. I need to make
Right.
sure that like serious progress is being taken before I jump in here. And when I met everybody, I was very happy. Now, since that day, I believe we hit employee number 170
Mm.
um, in a year and a bit, and almost 2 years, I guess now. So it's a very very quick growth rate, and we're bringing people on like crazy. And the secret for us is you have to treat everybody correctly. We hire from our community. Probably a
Yeah.
good third of our employees have been brought in literally from our own Discord, where we started talking to people, found out who they are, what they're like. They started contributing, and because they were contributing as moderators and they had this awesome skill set, we bring them in, we pay them a quite competitive salary, we take care of them. One of the things that's unique about us is that we're a fully remote company.
Right.
So, we have no central office that everybody has to go to. It's completely work from home. And because of that, we're able to work via like PEOs and things like that to hire people
Yep.
literally all over the world. And it's really really cool to be able to say, oh yeah, our team is everywhere. We've got people in I think 25 countries maybe,
Interesting.
working for Gala, and we do everything. Like we don't do any of the sort of shady crypto fly by night. Like I'm going to pay you with an NFT thing. Like everybody's an actual employee with an actual salary and actual benefits, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, for
turns
sure.
out people enjoy getting paid.
Yeah. Well, it's
Who
funny.
would have
It's
thought?
funny how that. It's funny how that works.
Right?
Uh, let's talk about GalaChain, because GalaChain
Yeah,
is a little bit of a differentiator for you guys. Explain how that
yeah,
works and what it means to the player network.
sure. So at the end of the day, most blockchains out there are conceptualized as almost financial tools. The idea behind the blockchain is it is a distributed ledger technology, right? A distributed ledger keeps track of balances. That's what a ledger does.
Yeah.
The problem is that from a game perspective, other than the things that have balances that you need to keep track of, obviously, it's not. It doesn't do what a game actually needs. And there's a variety of pieces of information that a game needs. And when you look at it from the perspective of how that is implemented, like obviously, if you have a sword in a game, that needs to be upgraded or things like that. So this is for us. This is what the core of GalaChain is like. Creating a chain specifically to serve the needs of game developers and specifically to serve the needs of specific games. For us, that's critical, and that's what GalaChain is. And
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to announcing it and releasing all of the documentation on it.
I like it. And the interesting thing is because we're talking to game founders and developers, we of course get a hold of a ton of DeFi and blockchain executives here on the show, so we
Yep.
kind of understand kind of the scope of what's happening. And typically, that's one of the big challenges is being able to get kind of your own native infrastructure rolling, and being able to
Right.
get that acceptance out there in the space because. I think some people have been very successful with it, whether you look at how Axie has been able to implement or maybe even some of the other projects that have been getting a little bit more airtime here and kind of stepping up the game in terms of doing things like what you're talking about with your project there. So I love that approach in terms of building out Gala Games. What's in store for you guys in terms of the future? Down the pipe, more
Ooh.
games. Tell me more about what's coming up next.
Well, there is a rather ridiculous amount of stuff coming up. Unfortunately, so much of it is embargoed right now because
Ah,
we have these announcements coming up here shortly. What I would say, one of the things that you will want to pay attention to is Galaverse.
okay.
Galaverse is going to be in Las Vegas. It's December 11th to 13th. Tickets have already sold out for the main event, but there is going to be an online event, and I believe there's about 1,000 of those tickets for December 13th, which can be purchased at Gala Games. Um, you want to be a part of this. You want to participate. It will be live streamed. But if you have one of those tickets, there may be something special in it for you.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Now we're talking.
but it's really really going to be a fantastic event for everybody, I
So,
think.
so in Vegas, December 13th, everybody's going to converge on Las Vegas, throw some blackjack down, and go to Galaverse. I like it.
That it's going to be
All I want
fun.
to know
Yeah,
is, can I wear my pink Elvis suit?
you can absolutely wear your it's required. It's required. The check
I
for
love
pink
it.
Elvis suits at the door.
At the door, pink Elvis suits, nice little groom, my cool
There you go.
glasses. I'll be
You're good to
looking
go. You're good to go.
styling. I have arrived at Galaverse.
There you go. Show
Now,
up, man. We'll do it.
Jason, talk to me about what's going to happen there. Is this mostly speakers? Are you going to do releases of games? Kind of give me a little bit of a hint, just a little. Come on,
Okay,
just a little.
so this is the way that I want you to think of this. Okay, we hate conferences. Okay,
The unconference.
nothing bothers me more than going somewhere, showing up, sitting in one of those crappy plastic folding chairs, and listening to somebody go through a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It kills me inside. Okay, so I want you to think of Galaverse as E3. This
Okay.
is
All right.
not this is not a normal conference where you're going to come and sit down and listen to somebody show you a PowerPoint and them talk at you. You're going to get insane amounts of alpha, new announcements, in person, amazing events. It is an experience. This conference is going to be it is very next level.
I like it.
Okay, it is
I like
unlike
it.
anything that you've seen in this space by a very long shot,
Excellent.
like
Well,
orders
okay.
of magnitude.
Now you're just rubbing it in now. You're just
Yeah,
making me
I am.
salivate on this
Dude,
one.
I'm so excited for it. I'm really looking forward to this.
It sounds good. Last topic, I don't want to, leave out without serious notes, and that is when you look at the gaming sector right now, you guys are, of course, one of the alpha dogs out there. What are you seeing as the biggest next challenge that you have to overcome for us to see the kind of adoption rate that we're going to see in gaming and blockchain in general? What is kind of that next hurdle that you got to overcome?
I think that there is a hurdle that I guess is sort of put up by. Let me back up a little bit. Blockchain, at its core, okay, is about freedom, right? But at the same time, there is an element for a long time that has been kind of exclusive. You have to have a certain degree of tech competency or you can't really get involved. That is getting a lot better now. But if you were to go back, 5-6 years and in this space and try to get involved, the barrier of entry is massively high. It's still higher than most gamers are willing to take the time to overcome. And I think that that's the next barrier is how do we make it so that, my mom who loves to play Candy Crush will get in and set up a wallet and play a game and earn something. That is that barrier. The concept of seed phrase, mnemonics, all of that, that's just not going to work, or it's going to get written down on some terrible Post-it and lost, in mail on the counter or something. We need to overcome that particular barrier in order to bridge this to the next level.
Well, I think with your founder, Zynga backed and understanding really what that era of gaming brought out into social media, which is really kind of the evolution of where gaming kind of spawned from. I know a lot of people hate to look back at that, but the reality was that social was where it was really kind of
that damn wandering cow.
Yeah, it just boom, and it started moving the space. So I think that if we see that in blockchain, and like to your point, is if you do see kind of this entry level and the barrier to entry much easier, I think we will see major adoption. And that is when we get into double digit or high double digit numbers, This is going to be an unbelievable industry.
Oh, it's going to be
to be in
crazy,
and
man.
around.
I love being in this space because there's so much potential and there's such an amazing future. And what I love about it more than anything is that all of us are working on building it together.
That's right, man. All right. Hey, Jason, it was great having you on, the Bitbender himself. Excellent. We're going to get you back in here when things get a little hotter for Gala Games.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Having you on the show, it was awesome. All right, you guys are tuned in over here on the podcast right now. Make sure and give us some likes over there and subscribe over there as well. But the number one thing you're going to do is jump in right here on the YouTube channel where you'll get a chance to catch interviews like this, all of our analysis, our deep dives on projects, our kind of our whole array of where we're moving as a channel from technology, blockchain, and investing. It's right here on the Paul Barron Network. And hopefully, if you have an idea for a show, or maybe you want us to get someone special on the show, listen, we got great tentacles out there in the space. We'll reach out, we'll get them here on the show, and hopefully answer some questions for you, our listeners, and of course, our viewers. Hit me up on Twitter. It's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.